Hey everybody, happy Monday. Hope you had a nice weekend. Today is July 31st, 2017. I know we say it every year, but it really does feel like this year is flying by. Before we get started, you might notice this artwork behind me. Believe it or not, it's like a bath mat. It's like something like a little rug that you would put on the ground. No, you can't buy them at the Lord and Art store. This is a one of a kind. It was actually given to me by my wife for hitting 30,000 subscribers. So I've been holding on to it for a while, but I did want to show it to you guys. So I thought, hey, I'll just pin that up behind me. I think I might put it up on a wall in here or something. I really like it. Of course, it has all the show names around the edge. You can't see it, but it says BrainScratch across the top, and then JohnnyVlogs is over there. But just wanted you guys to be able to check it out a little bit in today's episode. Before we get started, we want to thank our newest Patreon supporters. Travis Allen has pledged. Thank you so much, Travis. Nina A. also pledged. Thank you, Nina. Keegan Anderson, thank you so much. I believe it's Millabrie. Hope I'm saying that right. Thank you so much, Millabrie. And Christy Elliott was already pledged, but she increased her amount. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you all. It's awesome. It helps keep me here. It helps me helping other people, and that's what I love to do. So thank each and every one of you amazing Patreon supporters. So I got an email update from my associate producer, Christy Straciner, who, by the way, I don't know if I should say this publicly or not. Why not? It was her birthday this past week, or last week. So happy birthday, Christy. Hope you had a wonderful one. But she sent me an email about Forrest Fenn. Now, do you guys recall the Forrest Fenn treasure story? We did an episode of BrainScratch about a person named Randy Bilyeu who went looking for Forrest Fenn's treasure and wound up dying on his search of it. Well, last month, it appears someone else also went looking for the treasure and wound up dead. And now potentially this month, we have someone else that has wound up dead. It's a little questionable if he was really looking for the treasure or not, but according to one of his friends, he was. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit. When the second, I don't know if I should necessarily call him a victim, but when the second person died looking for the treasure, there was a little rush of articles that came out that were trying to take the side of, Forrest should not cancel this, because apparently Forrest was talking about ending this search when he heard that someone else had perished. And trying to compare this to other types of outdoor activities that people do. And of course, I'm going to have links in the description box below so you can read through the entire articles. But this is just a little piece of an article from OutsideOnline.com. And he had gone through and made comparisons to like scuba diving, where roughly 2 people per 70,000 die, American football, 2 people for every 100,000, surfers die at about 2.38 per 100,000. And we now know that there's 2 people. It's hard to have a real good estimate on how many treasure hunters there are, but Forrest himself has said that it could be, he said 65,000. It could also be as high as 100,000 or even higher. So it's kind of tough when you're talking statistics like this because you really don't have good information on one side of this equation. So the things that you're trying to compare it to, it's hard to know if those comparisons are really solid or not. But even the author here points out there's another problem. The problem with these comparisons, however, is that none factor in the psychology of treasure hunting, the unavoidable rush of thinking you're on the right track, gold fever. Police Chief Cassettis said the hunt has created an environment where people are making poor decisions. And I think there's something to that. I think it's a bit different if you're an American football player and you die doing the sport that you love, or a surfer. And surfers, that culture, there's people that just absolutely love surfing. They need it almost like a fix. But this is a little bit different because you're not necessarily having people that are outdoorsy people. Part of the intent of Forrest Fenn in him creating this is he wanted to help pull people out into the wilderness. Now, I think that there are some problems with the execution of this intent. I think it's a great intent. Wouldn't it be great if we could get some more kids away from their screens and going outside to play a bit more? But going out into these types of wilderness locations is not necessarily the same as getting little Timmy to go in the front yard and throw a ball around for a half hour, or even go to the park for an hour or something like that. This is different because you have people that are maybe not necessarily conditioned for these environments. In a lot of cases, these people are traveling to these locations. They're not natives of those locations. They're not familiar with the risks of being in environments like that. And they're looking past those fears because of the potential reward that's on the other side of all this. They're looking at a box that can contain up to $2 million in gold and all kinds of other stuff that supposedly Forrest has put into this box. So I think that there needs to be a little more common sense brought into this situation. But I'm not exactly sure how that fits in. I get what these guys are going for. Sure, life is risky. You could step outside and you could get hit by a bus. We've all heard conversations like that before. But this is a bit different. You're being drawn to this, What if I told you guys that I wrote out a check for $1 million and I taped it on the asphalt of the Autobahn? And that if you go out there and go looking around, you might be able to spot it. I mean, at what point is there a level of acceptance of responsibility where I say, you know what? I made a situation there where things could have been a little safer, and maybe I didn't think about that, and instead I put people in danger. And I'm hopeful that Forrest is thinking about these things. You have a guy that's in his 80s. I don't know that he even understands that, a lot of these people were not raised in the same type of environment as him. It's not like some of us had a bunch of outdoor activity when we were younger, and then at some point in our lives, we became hermits and we're just sitting in front of our screens. Some of us were born and raised in situations where we didn't have access to things like that. If we were living in a metropolitan area, perhaps, or something like that, maybe the most grass you'd see is the local park that's just a couple of square blocks. That is very, very different from going into these types of environments, riding on river rapids and stuff like that. I don't see it as the same. And I know Forrest keeps pointing back to, keep in mind that I was 80 years old when I placed this treasure, so don't go anywhere that an 80-year-old couldn't go. But then on top of that, he's also written these books about what a great adventurer he is. So once again, for people that are really looking into this, you have to wonder, are they considering that this is an 80-year-old man that's a typical 80-year-old man, or do they think that this is 80-year-old man that lived part of his life like Indiana Jones? I kind of struggle with that. So recently, just over the past couple days, there are now articles coming out about Eric Ashby. 31-year-old remains missing after his raft reportedly flipped on a challenging part of the Arkansas River on June 28th. A friend who's leading online efforts to raise awareness about the situation believes Ashby died searching for what's described as $2 million treasure hidden by New Mexico author Forrest Fenn. If he's right, Ashby will be the third person from Colorado to perish while looking for this prize in just over a year and a half, and the second in 2 months. So once again, I think Forrest has to put some thought into, is this really all worth it? And there's even the possibility, some people think that he might be faking this whole thing. There might not be a treasure out there. I also don't know, this thing was supposedly placed, I think about 7 years ago back out in the wild. Is he going and checking on it regularly? How does he know that it's even still there? What if it was found by someone that knows nothing about any of this, knows nothing about his books or nothing about that poem, and they found this box that has a bunch of stuff in it, thought maybe it was stolen loot of some kind, and decided to take it away and to not let anyone know that they even found the thing because they're afraid that it's going to get taken away from them if they find out that it was stolen or something along. I mean, there's all kinds of situations I can see happening around this thing where the treasure could already be gone. But for some reason, Forrest keeps insisting that it is still there. But I don't know. Outside of that, just back on the article from outsideonline.com, they also point out that a Fenn treasure hunter, Madalena Taylor of Lynchburg, Virginia, prompted 3 search and rescue efforts in the same part of Wyoming in a span of 4 years. The first time she spent 4 days lost in the woods. The second time she broke her ankle. Still, she went back again. After 3 days, her parked car drew searchers out looking for her. So we now have search and rescue resources that are being taken up by people that are honestly going into situations and they're getting themselves in trouble because they're reaching beyond their levels of comfort. In some cases, maybe you could argue they're not being very smart with how they're going about these things. For example, with Eric Ashby, it's said that he bought a inflatable raft from Walmart and then took that on Class 5 rapids, which apparently that raft was nowhere near rated for. If I remember right, also in Randy's case, I think there was some question about the raft that he was using, because if I remember right, they found pieces of the raft. Outside of all that, Albuquerque Journal reports that the behavior of some Fenn cultists veers into the obsessive and bizarre. One man thought the treasure was really Fenn's daughter and stalked her. Fenn had to get a restraining order against another fan. So look, the original intent of this thing, first of all, I have to question a little bit. I know that he says it's because he's trying to draw people out into the wilderness. Well, if there's really one treasure out there and it was easy enough for an 80-year-old man to place it, what happens when that gets found? All of a sudden that puts an end to people going out into the wilderness. So the feasibility in my mind that the treasure does not exist out there is somewhat valid. You also have a guy that's at the end of his life that might be looking to make a name for himself with doing all this. He obviously wrote 2 books about this, and it's suggested that one of those books is about the treasure, and there's clues all over that book. Is this a viral marketing stunt for him to be able to sell books? He's not the only one that has written books on this. There are now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total books just specifically about this treasure. That is, Forrest Fenn wrote 2 of them, and you've got all the other ones being written by other people. So several people making money on this in different ways. I don't know. It just sounds kind of risky even getting associated with this guy. Let me just give you a little bit of history. This is from Wikipedia.org. Prior to the treasure hunt, Fenn found himself at odds with federal antiquities laws. Basically, him and his wife were dealers in antiques. And apparently there was some question about how he was acquiring some of the antiques. FBI agents raided his home in 2009 as part of an investigation into artifact looting in the Four Corners area and seized items, but he was not charged. 2 people targeted in the case committed suicide, and Fenn has blamed the FBI for their deaths. Wow. I don't know, guys. I don't know if this is the best dude to be hanging around. That's all I'm going to say about that. But outside of all that, there is the poem, there is the mystery. Is the treasure really out there or not? Are people going to keep looking for it? And these are people that are not just going out into nature to just enjoy it. Even by Fenn's own description, he's hoping that every redneck with a truck that just lost his job and has 6 kids will take them out into the wilderness to go looking for his treasure. I really don't know. I can't tell you guys if it's out there, and I really struggle with the thought of, is this a good idea or not in terms of motivating people that aren't familiar with this type of activity into pushing themselves into this type of activity. And some of them are, they're not being able to learn lessons about being out in the wilderness because they're literally dying before they get to learn these very important lessons and about the risks in being in areas like that. Is it really his fault or not? I don't see any way that he could be held criminally liable for it. But in terms of humanity, in terms of looking at this from a moral standpoint, I would certainly be asking myself some very tough questions about, is this a good idea? Should I really let this thing go on? And if you really want to help people that have just lost their job, rednecks with 6 kids, that $2 million should probably be divvied up a little bit. You could probably do it in some different ways, maybe giving out a bunch of college scholarships for children or something along those lines. I don't know that this whole story about a box being out in the wilderness with basically all the answers to your financial problems, I don't know if that's the best thing for him to be remembered by. And at this point, I can tell you, I'm starting to remember him more for the tragedies around this case than for this treasure. And especially if it never gets found, I think over the years, this legacy that he's hoping to hold on to is going to change very dramatically on him, at least for some of us out here. But what do you guys think? Let me know about it in the comments below, and I will include, as I said, links to all these in the description box, as well as the BrainScratch that I did on Randy's case, in case you guys haven't seen that. So thank you so much for spending some time with me and the banner today on Johnny Vlogs. I hope you guys have a wonderful Monday, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on the Lord and Arts channel. Take care.